I'm obsessed. Like, it's so good.
Thank you. I was like, I have no idea if anyone's gonna like it.
Right? Like, you never know, right? You're
You never
pouring
know.
your heart out. You're like, oh, shoot.
What I do love and what I'm glad you picked up on in the book is that I've always seen colorism. What I recognize in the process of building it and growing it is that it is spiritual work and that it is soul work and that it is ancestral work. End of the day, it's about our souls getting to, thrive and learn all the things we came here to learn. Yes,
Okay.
I'm obsessed with astrology and numerology and tarot, all the
I
things.
mean, I couldn't tell from your book. I mean,
I
like,
know.
hello, whale whispering on the Pisces full moon. I was like, okay, girl was there in Virgo season. Okay. I'm Leslie Tagorda, a business astrologer and creator of the Astro Brand Method, blending more than 20 years of brand strategy with the precision of astrology to help entrepreneurs and underrepresented leaders make their mark. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to have Dr. Sarah L. Webb here. She's an author, a channeler, and a spiritual coach who's also an internationally recognized expert on colorism. She's founded Colorism Healing and is a global thought leader. And for more than 2 decades, she's been transforming learning experiences for diverse groups around the globe. Well, today we are talking about her upcoming book, which is coming out on July 7th. I am so proud to have an advanced copy in my hands. And we've already been just vibing, both Gemini risings, both Pisces midheavens. But, take a look and find Dr. Sarah. I'll give her information in the show notes and towards the end, but you can find her on MTV, Forbes, Fox, TED, NPR, and more. Welcome, Dr. Sarah.
Hello, Leslie. I am so delighted to be here. Really, really excited for this conversation. And thank you so much for, reading the book and inviting me into your space as well.
Yes, well, I get really excited when I actually get to meet amazing people in person. And it was so wild that, when I was in New York for Aries season, you had come to this Aries party and I didn't even know you were there. Like, what was that about? Let's talk about that.
So I have been getting your emails for a while, and I knew that you didn't know me. I had left like a couple of comments on like a podcast episode a year or two ago, and had been reading the emails, but I was like, so I definitely knew you way more than you knew me. And so I was like, oh yeah, if you're gonna be in town and there's gonna be this like astro themed party, because not a lot of my friends and family in my inner circle are care about astrology at all. So I went to this party and I was like, everyone knows as much or more than I know, and I was geeking out. But yeah, when I had that experience, I was like, I get to meet like people who vibe, and I think there were like multiple Geminis there,
Oh, so much
multiple
Gemini energy.
inside Gemini and Sagittarius
Yeah.
energy. Yeah, and so like meeting you in person, they say, you never know like if people are who they are online versus in person, and I feel like the vibe and the energy is the same. So you're as welcoming and authentic as you are online and in person.
Well, I remember like Colin was like, "Oh, your friend Dr. Sarah's here." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like the party's like winding down.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I was so glad that we were both staying on like what do you call the upper like
yes, uptown, uptown, uptown
uptown.
in Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, like like that was like coming from the Lower East Side, going up to Harlem,
Mhm.
and I was staying like way up, up, up. I think that's called Washington Heights or something. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know where I was. I was like, I'm so glad that we got to have that cab ride together because then I found out about your book that was coming through and just like all of your brilliant work. So we had like our own little private party. As I was reading this book, and thank you for sending me this advanced copy of Colorism.
Yeah.
There are just so many, like as you can see on my post-it notes, there were just so many places that I was like, and this and this and this. um you know I'm Filipino from Hawaii, and so we have a lot of colorism. And you were able to give words to so many feelings that I just didn't have the language for. Can you share a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yeah, this is why I start the book with that very phenomenon.
Yeah.
is, I call it, the first chapter is articulating the reality of colorism. And and that title was inspired by the years that I've been talking about this. Like, that refrain has been constant. I now know that what I've been experiencing has a name,
Yeah.
and that in and of itself is healing for people, right? You're not just making it up. It's not just you and your silo, but when there's shared language around it, you feel less alone.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of validation that says, okay, this is something that I can come to understand. And maybe if I can understand it, I can heal around it or find a way to untangle myself from it. And then the specific word colorism, I think also helps us understand that it is systemic, right? And so it's not just my hurt feelings.
Right.
And that is also helpful for so many people in saying, this is bigger than me, it's bigger than one particular family or one particular location. And that can be maybe overwhelming, but I think for most people, they find it empowering to know that there's more to the situation than just like my individual experiences. And for me, that was my first lesson. And having the language around it, I use the James Baldwin quote, helps you to, having language to describe your reality helps you to survive that reality and maybe reshape it. And I think language is such a powerful tool, both in the healing of old wounds, but also in how we create a new future, right? And how we recreate ourselves even. And so I think language is a magical tool, actually.
Says the Gemini Sun, Gemini Mercury, Chiron, and Gemini, Gemini rising. Words are healing.
And Gemini Mars,
And Gemini,
yes.
oh yeah, forgot about that Mars there. How could I forget about Gemini Mars?
Because it's way on the outskirts.
You got the whole Gemini covered. Yeah, I loved hearing the stories about colorism and the journeys that we'll talk about in colorism, but it happens with so many different kinds of like oppressive systems, whether it's colorism or for me, my healing word or healing phrase was colonial mentality.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and so I didn't learn about colonial mentality until I was like well into like, like early 40s. It was like 2020, like there was so many things going on in the world in terms of like social justice in 2020. And do you know Asha Frost? She's another Gemini.
I don't. It doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, she's another spiritual woman. She's an indigenous medicine woman, and she taught me this word or this phrase, colonial mentality, from the viewpoint of being Native American. And
Mhm.
we have this for Philippines also because we were colonized for so long that colonial mentality is basically where you put onto a pedestal the oppressor's culture, right?
Yes.
And so you
Yes.
feel a lot of shame for your own culture. And this is like what I swam in, like my entire upbringing. Like our grandma wouldn't teach us the language, like we could only have like the food when there was an other like outsiders coming through. Like it was very like protective because she didn't want us to be Filipino. And then the colorism was so blatant as well. And so
Mhm.
like growing up in my family is like my mom is white and my biological dad is Filipino. And so my grandma, my sister, my half sister who also has a white mom, and we are our grandma's favorite. And it was blatant, like she'd call us her little mestizas. I think you had shared a story similar with Emma, who is also
Mhm.
Filipino.
Yeah.
And our brothers and like our darker skinned cousins and stuff like that. I mean, she was just downright mean to them.
Mm.
And growing up, we kind of saw this, but we didn't know how to handle it. There,
Exactly.
like, it was so much. Jenny, do you have any thoughts to share? Like, oh yeah, I've heard that before.
Yes. Well, I think what you're speaking to, there's a lot there to unpack too. When we
Yeah.
talk about something like the colonial mentality, and sometimes I like to reiterate that people adopt this mentality. I think another way I've heard it is like internalized oppression, right? And
Yes.
so there are like parallel terms and ideas there. And I think people can sometimes feel ashamed for having felt ashamed, right? So like, oh, I was ashamed of my culture and I'm ashamed of that, right? And
Yeah.
so I think as we have these conversations, it's having a lot of grace and compassion with ourselves, but also like our ancestors and our lineage because of the significant violence that and the intense investment. So it was a huge investment of resources, of capital, of like military force sometimes, right? That was put forth to create this outcome of us wanting to separate or remove ourselves from our cultures. And so I think there's a lot of pain and wounding around the fact that that had to happen. And thinking about the family dynamics, I think a lot of people's first experiences with colorism, unfortunately, come from people that we would expect to love us the most. And a lot of times there is love there. A lot of times there's deep love there. And also there's this bias, there's this favoritism or discrimination and another type of wounding and trauma as well. And I think that's what makes colorism so complicated because when you're facing racism from a group that you see as other than you, like outside or different, like a different culture, a different race, a different nationality, there's almost this sense that, okay, well, they're strangers, right? It might still hurt, it's still unfair, it's still wrong, but it's a different level of betrayal, a different level of wounding when that type of rejection and that type of mistreatment is coming from your inner circle and your community, the one place where you should find the most belonging. And there's a lot around, a lot of times we talk about how families of color, various races and ethnicities have a wide range of what we call phenotypes, so different skin tones, hair textures, right? Especially as extended family members marry and have children. And ideally, that would just be a representation of humanity, right? But unfortunately, we take these colonial mindsets and these oppressive mindsets, and we do to our own kin what the state and what the empire has been doing to our cultures writ large. But I think that, and I know that
Yeah.
it's possible to have repair there, and I think that's a big goal of my work is to teach people that when repair is possible, there are tools and strategies to get there. And even if other people don't want to come along for that journey, it's still possible for you as an individual as well.
Yeah. It is so complicated. There are so many different layers and like kind of threads and like this crazy tangled tapestry. Because also like in your book, you were sharing, like you had stories about some clients that you've helped where, in some families, because I had a mixed family, right? In some families, I was the white, like they would literally call me the haole, right? And
Mm.
haole in Hawaiian is like slang for white. And I'm clearly not white, but I'm, like lighter, I guess, lighter than them. And then in my white family, like my grandfather didn't even want to meet me because I was brown, right?
Right.
And so what's interesting is as I was reading your book, of course there's all the systems and the healing journey, but what I kept on hearing come through in terms of astrology was Chiron. Do you work
Yes.
with Chiron?
I'm not surprised. It's interesting because I started working outwardly on colorism in 2011, and then in 2013 I started Colorism Healing, and I hadn't started studying astrology back then.
Yeah.
I think had I like already been versed in astrology, it might have mapped differently. But hindsight, as they say, is 2020, and I'm like, of course this is a Chiron thing, and I have Chiron in Gemini, and that's like my ascendant sign, and so I was like, okay, I get it, right? The one journey I had to go on just so happens to be the very thing I'm able to like help other people understand and move through for themselves.
Well, so I hadn't yet pulled your chart by this when I first started reading, and I was reading,
Okay.
I was like, oh, I can see Chiron all over. I was like, I bet you she has like some like sun conjunct Chiron or something. And then when I pulled your chart, I was like, ding, 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 ding. I was like, Chiron is like so prominent in your chart, like Chiron and Gemini. And for the listeners, like, I love working with Chiron, especially in the leadership sensibility, because Chiron is literally what we can't heal in ourselves, we can heal in others. And everything that we do to get over over our greatest pains, and you shared such a painful, challenging childhood, right?
Mhm.
That I was like, okay, what is the context that this Chiron is giving you? Because ultimately it's a gift. If you didn't have that pain, you would not have the purpose that you are living now.
That's true. Yeah. And I wouldn't, like, even if I cared about the issue, like from an intellectual level,
Mhm.
I think what resonates with the people who've worked with me and what resonates with the people who have followed my work and support my work is that there is a level of authenticity there when I'm talking about the pain, when I'm talking about the grief a lot of times. And even though I like there are diverse experiences within the realm of colorism, so
Mhm.
people have very unique paths and journeys when it comes to this issue, but there is nothing like someone who has been in the trenches for a long time, not only in experiencing the pain of colorism, but someone who has like done a lot of deep work
Yeah.
to heal and to grow and to like foster or cultivate wisdom from
Yeah.
that pain and that journey. And I think people just really see that and it resonates. So Chiron makes a lot of sense. And now that you're saying this, I'm thinking I should be more conscious and intention with tracking Chiron when it
Yeah.
comes to this work.
It's so interesting because, Chiron just moved into Taurus, or it's going to move into Taurus. When is it moving? Oh yeah, it's already moved in there on the 19th. And it's just doing a little toe dip in there. And so every time I talk about Chiron, because he's lived through all of like the human pains in terms of like abandonment, betrayal, self-sabotage, like he's lived that story, all the pains of the human experience. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so Chiron. And it's like, yeah, you're Chiron. We're all Chiron.
Yeah.
We're all this. And so when I think about like the Chiron journey and like what you have gone through, what you just shared, right? It's like, even if I was interested on an intellectual level, like to me, that's like the ivory tower talking, right? Like, I'm going to go study, I'm going to go observe this person, this idea, this experience without
Right.
actually like living the experience, right? And so to me, our expertise comes from our lived experience, the embodiment, all of the emotions that we have had to run through to now overcome and then excel at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not interested in like the intellectual, like, I
Me
want to
either. I
know.
know. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that that's what draws them to my work. They're like, yeah, Dr. Sarah, she's done all this research and she's like really versed. And I have. So
Yeah.
I'll put that out there. Like I have read a lot, watched a lot of documentaries, done a lot of interviews, and like working with people, I've learned a lot as well. So I have studied beyond my personal experience pretty extensively. And yet I think like so people know that and they think maybe that's why they like working with me or talking to me about this topic so much, but I think subconsciously, I think their spirit and their subconscious is really drawn to like on a deeper level, like the fact that I have that level of lived experience and embodied soul experience and a level of authenticity when talking about the pain, that it's not just an intellectual thing, that it's
Yeah.
something I have carried with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you had to back it up, right? You had to first answer your own question, which was like, how do I overcome this? Like, why does the world treat me differently? How can I, live up to that really like rock solid, like just self love and self worth that you've had? Obviously, like, we'll get into that, but it's just like, for like in the Chiron story, right? He gets this like mortal gash that doesn't kill him because he's half god, and it's so painful for him. It's his chronic wound that he travels the world, the universe, learning all these different healing modalities.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
He gets all the certifications, he learns all the herbs, he gets his doctorate, he gets the next certification, he does his research. I mean, he didn't have certifications
That's
back then,
it.
but yeah.
That really tracks.
It
That
tracks.
is precisely it. And I think part of it too is I wanted to like part of the research and the having conversations and dialogue that is beyond my individual experience is that I knew that this was a collective issue. And so I wanted the solution to also be collective, right? And I think there's a time and a place for, niche conversations around colorism, and I think there's also a time and a place for the global cross-cultural conversations as well. And I think that is, I don't know if you can tell me, like, if that's also a Chiron thing, is being able to not just understand your own wounding and your painting,
Yeah.
your own wounding and your pain, but to then also be able to see other people genuinely and hold space for their pain as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that has something very special to do with you and your natal chart, of course, like with the, we're talking about your Pisces midheaven and wanting to be a spiritual healer. Like ultimately, that's what you're delivering on is like soul work,
Yeah.
spiritual healing. And then a lot of us also have what I call the cycle breaker aspect, which is, you're like, tell me more. I saw it. um, there's this there's this aspect that so many people have with Chiron opposite Uranus. So Uranus is the planet of disruption, of change, of
Mm,
revolution oftentimes. And for a good amount from like the 60s through the 80s, Chiron and Uranus were traveling like opposite each other up to about 10 degrees. So you have Gemini 9 degrees of your Chiron, and your Uranus is at Sagittarius of 16 degrees. So that's about a seven degree orb.
mhm.
And so I totally qualify you as a cycle breaker, but it's also with your sun, which is your
Yeah.
brilliance. And so you're like, I'm not just going to keep this for me, I'm going to change the world.
Funny.
You feel that?
Yes. And the reason why I feel that come through with, and because it could come through in other ways of my life too, but we're here to talk about the book.
No, no,
So,
I mean, this is all of it's in the book. I
yes,
mean,
yes. Because colorism is that topic that like very few people want to talk about it. And even people who are very comfortable and open and eager to talk about things like racism or sexism or classism,
Mhm.
colorism is oftentimes that one thing that people just aren't willing to go there. And I think it goes back to what we're saying pre-bio, is that it hits close to home, literally. And I think I said this in the book, sometimes it's too close to home. And so for me to dare to talk about this topic that other people and say, oh, it's divisive. Why are you talking about this? We shouldn't air our dirty laundry and no one needs to know about this. We want to keep it hidden. And so I think it's disruptive in that sense as well. Like the mere fact that you have the boldness to say the thing that so many people have wanted to ignore or wanted to dismiss or deny or not acknowledge. I can see like that Uranus opposite sun
Yeah,
playing out that way as well.
totally. I mean, so one of the quotes that I have from your book that I loved so much was like, speaking up and seeking justice for yourself is the furthest thing from low self-esteem or jealousy. It's an act of radical self-love,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I think sometimes we think it is, right? Like self-love is, let me treat myself to a spa day. Like that could be self-love. But sometimes like self-love is not like romantic and soft and dream. Sometimes self-love is like, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to advocate for myself. I deserve more and better in the world. And so even though it seems Martian and assertive, maybe that's my Mars in the first house too. It seems like it's not, I think we think love always has to be like this whisper, but sometimes love is a yell. Sometimes love is a battle cry.
Yeah,
So,
sacred rage, right? And
yes.
letting that rage out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so I in your book you talk about that, and you just mentioned it here too, that you started writing and researching back in 2011 and blogging about colorism. What inspired you to pick up the pen, pick up the
Mhm.
keyboard?
Well, technically, I had already been picking up pens and keyboards for other topics. And so I think that had a lot to do with it. But when I was teaching high school, my students were being colorist and saying things about their skin tone, about other people's skin tone. And that woke me up to the fact that what I thought was just me is actually a generational thing that's going to continue if we don't actually actively do something about it.
Mhm.
And because I am a words person, I was like, well, I can write about it. Like, I don't know what else I can do at this point because when I was teaching high school, I hadn't done any of the research on colorism yet, right? I was just seeing this phenomenon, and there was a documentary that had just come out about colorism. So I was like, okay, I see the puzzle pieces aligning, and I think I'm already writing on a blog. Like, let me use this burgeoning platform to talk about this issue and one that has impacted me so much.
Yeah.
And that was really one of the first posts I made was about my personal experiences and why I was so afraid to talk about it before, but the impetus, seeing that how pervasive this subject really was, helped me overcome my fear around talking about the personal issue, but also asking people to look at it more broadly as well. But I just love writing, and I think there's something to be said about if you care about an issue, find your way to address it, right? So other people who might be interested in colorism, maybe they make a documentary, or maybe they, create a stage play, or they, I don't know, do an art piece, right? Because I've even like done curated art shows and stuff. So some people draw, and that's their platform for addressing the issue. And for me, writing is my jam.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So, more coming back to your book, what I was also really, there were so many things that, of course, I was saying yes to. But one of the things that I was really in awe of your personal story was how you were just seemed so courageous and so unafraid to, even at a young age, to really speak up for yourself, even when you're writing in your blog and there's like backlash, to like keep on going. Like, can you tell us more about that? Because that is something that's totally missing in my I'm afraid. I'm like, oh no, people are going to critique me.
Yeah. I think the fear is definitely there. And I think that's why I believe so firmly in the practice of courage. And like courage has been my guiding light. And actually, um, the year or two before I started Colorism Healing officially, I made courage my word of the year.
Mhm.
So my task for the year, instead of a New Year's resolution, I was like, my theme is just going to be courage. So every day I have to do something courageous. And so I think I want to demystify it in that sense, and saying that it's something that I set a clear intention to build my courage. And it was something that I worked on for an extensive period of time, at least a couple of years, consciously trying to cultivate courage and reading things about courage. Audre Lorde's essay, The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action, is something I reread. And especially back then, I was rereading it multiple times. And so the premise is that we think our silence is going to save us, right? Because we're afraid to speak up. And she was like, well, even if we stay silent out of fear, we realize our mortality still exists, right? And other people have described it as like, no matter what you do, 30% of the people will love it, 30% will hate it, and 30% will never know it existed, you know? And so it's something that I've consciously worked at. And I think I set that intention because I cared so much about the issue.
Yeah.
I was like, this is something that I think really, really needs to exist in the world. And so I have to build whatever in me it takes to be able to say it. And one thing I say too is that as recent as, and it's interesting because I was in Hawaii when this happened, and I think it was 2022, maybe 2022, November 2022, and it was my mom's birthday, so she was in Hawaii with me, and there was a film, a beloved film. I think I talked about this in the book as well. Everyone loved this film, and I was like, I see colorism in the film, but I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to say that because everyone loves it, and I don't want to be that person. But like I started
Which
like,
film can you say?
oh yeah, it was Black Panther 2. Black
Oh,
Panther. Yes, yes,
yes.
yes. Like I don't want to be attacked
Yeah.
for offering a critique of a movie that people were really, really supportive of. But like the universe, I started like bumping my elbow, I started stubbing my toe. I was getting like physical injuries on my body. I was like,
You
I
better talk
think
about this.
I think I need to let this out. And it ended up being one of my most viral posts, even to this day. And it led to like people asking me to talk about it on radio shows. Because when I found the courage, I could have stayed silent, but I was like, no, clearly my spirit, my body even is telling me this needs to be said. For you, you need to have this release. But the amount of people who said, I saw it too. I felt this too. I didn't think anyone else was going to mention this, right? And so you're constantly reminded of the power of when you find the courage to speak your truth, the universe will show you like the magic and the power in that. And so it's worth it every time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I think I love hearing that story about finding the courage to do that and overcoming your fears, doing it, and how the universe just opened up with more opportunities for you to speak on it.
Yeah, yeah. And I will also say for anyone listening, like when I published that first blog post, my palms were sweaty. And if you read the book, I described this. Like it took me 30 minutes. I had written the whole piece and I was like, had my hand on the publish button. I sat in my chair for 30 minutes, a half hour, palms sweaty. And every time I thought I was about to click it, I would be like, no, I can't do it. So, and I'm sharing that because I think sometimes people think, oh, I feel fear, and so I just can't do it. And I think there's like a tipping point.
Yeah.
There's a tipping point where if you sit with the fear long enough, that you will take the courageous action.
That's wild. Oh my goodness. That must be your Capricorn moon. Your Capricorn moon in the eighth. So like,
It gets
so
me in trouble.
it no, it doesn't. It makes you like tenacious. It's gonna like, I'm gonna go do this. One of the things where I see your Capricorn moon come through is just like the tenacity that you have to get over things, meaning not get over things, but like overcome,
Hmm.
right? You shared your depression story that really like hit
Yeah.
with me. And that, like for, 7 years, 10 years, you're like doing the thing and like waking up with that pit in your stomach. And I have that regularly, like that,
Hmm.
especially with my book coming out,
Yes.
all of that fear. And I was like, okay, I'm taking notes. What did Dr. Sarah do? Okay, affirmations, her hype songs, her, like all the things. But
Yeah.
what was so beautiful when you said, one day I just woke up and all I heard was, I love you.
Hmm. I will never forget that morning. And I think like the for me and I would encourage anyone like if you're in a period of struggle or if you like me I had chronic struggles is like developing the self-awareness around where you're vulnerable. And so I knew that like those waking thoughts that was a turning point for me. Like if I could reel in or like navigate my waking thoughts, it could change the trajectory of my day, you know? So when early in my depression, it was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want to. I can't. I'm afraid. I'm tired, you know? And so all these things and starting my day like that. But I think over the time in the journey of years in active work and multiple types of work, um, I was able to like peel back the layers because I think the I love you was always there, right? And it's more than I think. I'm pretty sure the I love you was always there. And so it was like the healing work that I had been doing was kind of like pulling the weeds out of the garden of the fear and the anxiety and the self-loathing, right? So that I could see and allow to flourish and thrive.
I understood you.
Thrive,
I
flourish.
got it. New words, new words. We're Geminis. We're
Uh,
making new words.
Yes, exactly. Like that rose of like I love you. And I think it was myself talking to me, like my higher self talking to me, or just like my younger self talking to me, maybe, but there was like a deeper part of me and I also think that I love you, and I'm realizing this in the moment. I think that I love you was even gratitude for persisting,
Yeah.
like myself giving myself gratitude. Like, I love you for choosing us, for choosing to do the work, for choosing to help us be able to live more freely and authentically. Yeah, I love that morning so much.
Oh, choosing you. That's so beautiful. Another time that your Capricorn moon came through, you also mentioned that performance and accomplishment as is your drug of choice.
Yes, girl. Yes. You're so right though. I didn't even put that together. I was like, oh, that's totally my Capricorn moon. Could you imagine if like my moon was like in Leo or like Libra? Like it might have been a very different coping strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, my coping strategy of like, I will achieve myself into feeling better.
Yeah.
Doesn't always serve you, but you come out with like a really long resume.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like that's a very common theme. And to me, that's also a Chiron story. It's not one that I think a lot of other astrologers put to his like life journey. But Chiron, after he was abandoned by his mom, he was adopted by Apollo and Artemis, and so the twins. Like they were teaching him all the things. So Artemis taught him how to hunt and how to like, archery and things. And Apollo taught him all of like the medicinal arts, all of the oracle arts, all those things. And he was an overachiever. And I thought about that overachiever because like I'm an overachiever as well, you know. And I can share a little bit about my story too, just from like the shames that I've gone through. But I was like, if I can be good at something, then people will like me.
Yes, I feel that.
Yeah.
I was like, I just have to like, and I was like, maybe if I run really fast in PE, it was just the most random thing. Whatever was available, whatever was on the table, I was like, oh, and I think Duolingo and like online language learning had just come out. I was like, well, I have to now learn 7 languages, so then I'll be impressive. Yeah,
What languages do you know? What do you speak? What 7 languages do you speak?
fluently one, but I have studied or attempted to study Spanish, French, and Portuguese.
Okay, okay. I love that. I realized that we're having this call today and I have my hair blown out straight. Um, and I used to hate my curly hair when I was like, and I think you call it texturism. I was like, oh, I never know that was a word. that was that was a brand new one to me. But I remember my cousin, my Filipino cousin, she had this like long straight hair, and I had all this curly hair, and I was just always trying to straighten it, always just trying to take off my freckles, just like all the things. But I say that because one of the things that also just there's so many I could just like list all the things in this book, but one of the things that you said was let's learn to love ourselves enough that we don't need others beneath us in order to feel whole.
Oof, I said that. That was good.
That was it. You said it and it was really good. I started, I underlined it a few times.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily I feel because like personally for me and like maybe from others from outside experience, but just as a child I felt like I was like just the lowest of the low, right? That I was just constantly just kind of trying to fit into whatever family system that I was where I needed to belong to. um I needed to, straighten my hair. I needed to wear the right clothes. You were mentioning something. I had to have like the right makeup. I was like, oh man,
yeah,
Dr. Sarah's calling me out. Because my self-esteem was so low.
yeah, yeah. And that's pervasive. I was gonna say common, but I don't even think common is a strong enough word. I think it's pervasive. And again, like I feel like I always have this, like, I've learned to have this deep sense of compassion for the ways that we have been trying to navigate a very oppressive world,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I mean oppressive in the systemic sense, but even in the ways we do it on an interpersonal level, right? And in our micro communities and like lateral oppression and this control, sense of belonging, feeling rejected. We are all trying to navigate that with some sense of feeling like I can have some control in this context, right? And a lot of times when we can't control anything outside of us, it was like, okay, well, one thing I can do is straighten my hair, and then maybe I'll have that sense of belonging. And I think it's so human to want to belong, and that's a beautiful thing. And I think there's also an opportunity for us to recreate dynamic situations, relationships where we can have authentic belonging and true belonging, right? And I know that there people have conversations around fitting in versus belonging, and how a lot of times we think to fit in is to belong, right? But there's a saying that to truly belong, you have to be yourself, right? And acknowledging that, like, maybe your authentic self is the straight hair and the, exuberant fashions and the beautiful makeup and things like that. But whatever that authenticity is, it has to be in the room in order for us to belong in the room. And I think there's just so much fear, like a human fear around vulnerability, around being seen, like visibility wounds, and that we seek to close that down in ourselves, and therefore we can't let others show it to us, right? Like whatever we're not willing to embrace or accept or see within us, we reject it and judge it in others, right? And so I can't let you be authentic if I'm afraid to be authentic,
Yeah.
right? If I'm afraid to be expressive and open my heart, I need to judge and shame you if you dare to do
Mm.
that, right? And so I think we see that playing out even in something like colorism. Like, how dare you have the courage to be your natural self when I'm not feeling that courageous in the moment? And so then we project and we have these displays of shaming or judging and criticism. But I see a lot of hope and potential as people are waking up and are starting to heal that we will create more spaces, more and more spaces, more and more communities that do have capacity for all of our authentic expressions.
Yes. Ah, so good. Um, and I want to talk about kind of like one kind of final thing in terms of like just what really drew me to this book as I was reading it. I feel that our system and philosophy of the world and healing is so in line. Some of the frameworks that I do with astrology are also like personal, community, collective, and
Yes,
you
yes, yes.
you have that, and then we also are, as both of us as like spiritual teachers, right? Like all of this work that we want to do in our becoming or personal development or leadership development, or, branding and making your mark for the work that I do through astrology, it's a parallel path. Like you have to do like the inner healing, the inner journey at the same time you're doing, writing the blog post, right? You got to have the courage to like write the blog post.
Yes,
If you don't
yes.
have the courage, you can't push publish.
Right. And what I discovered too is that, like, if I were to say I have to heal before I start colorism healing, I probably wouldn't have healed,
Yeah.
because starting that initiative, going public in that way, was part of my
The
healing. It
healing.
was so healing in and of itself to be doing that public facing work and working with other people and teaching people. Like, so yeah, doing them in tandem is so important. I think where we err sometimes is that we have a lot of people who do the outward public work who aren't doing the inner work.
Yeah.
I think we see that a lot more often, but there is, I think, lots of space in this. I talk about the concept of grace as in like parallel parking. Like, you have to have enough space between cars so that you can get in and out of the space, right? And
Mm.
that's what I call grace. And so as we evolve and learn and change and heal, we will not always get it right, right? We will not always say the right thing. We will not always, and I often tell people I don't have to agree with every leader in the world, because I don't even agree with myself all the time. Like that, girl, what you thought last week, we're
It
gonna revise
changed.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gemini
Um,
permission to change.
Permission to change and grow. And so I think doing both at the same time is an example of that, right? And I think people are afraid sometimes because we want to be perfect. So it's like, well, I have to do it perfect. I can't go do this thing in the world until I'm perfect. And that's also like a type of wounding that we have to heal as well.
So good. And I love that your book offers all these the reflections for us to really go deeper for ourselves. Reflections and revisions. Is that the repair work?
Yes, yes, yes. It because it's so. such a Gemini thing. Reflection. So there's the alliteration, but also because colorism deals so much with what we see visually, I was like, oh, reflections. And then because I'm a writer and we're talking about like inner narratives and narratives we have about other people, I was like, oh, we have to revise those stories. And so I definitely knew that this book couldn't just be informative. It had to be like a working document, something that people wouldn't just like have information from when they close the book. But the book had to contain doorways and opportunities for people to start to apply what they're learning.
Oh, so good. Um, Dr. Sarah, just thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share about your book that's coming out? Like this book really moved me, and I feel like this is like required reading for all of us, especially
Yay.
like if we're working in systems change, if we're working in power and privilege, if we are healers, if we are coaches, we have to understand the spectrum of privilege, the spectrum of power, the spectrum of colorism, and how that impacts. And so, required reading.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like us to know about you, your work, or the book?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say about the book in particular is that it's not just for people who are in my shoes, who are darker skinned and have experienced, been on the, negative end of colorism. It's for anyone who cares about making the world a better place, regardless of your skin tone, regardless of your nationality or race. If you want to contribute to creating a future where all people can thrive and live a life that is full of like love and peace and um like resource and access and community, then this, I agree with you. This is
Required
required.
reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to add this book to my I have a certification, my Astro Brand certification, and we spend like a whole module on power and privilege. Um well, because astrologers, right, we have a seat of privilege, we have a seat of power when we're talking to somebody, because no matter who the other person is, even I'm talking to like like a really powerful person, they're going to say like, oh, I can see things, I know things about them, and they're going to
Yeah.
hand me their power unintentionally. And we can do a lot of harm if we don't recognize our own power and privilege. And so I did not have colorism in my or the actual term colorism in my curriculum. And now I'm going to have to add that and add this to the required reading.
Yes, I love it. Like tangible change in the moment. We're witnessing it, seeing it happen.
Yeah. I love your work. And I think I love your work because it's so aligned with my work.
Yes, and I love that. And like I said, I've been following your work for a long time, and that alignment is why I was drawn to your astrology work as well. So it makes sense.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Everybody go and order this before July 7th, because as you've been hearing me talk about my book, pre-orders matter. When you order a book before the pub date, all of those orders count to that first week, and we want to make this a bestseller.
Yay! Let's speak it into existence. I love it.
So make sure you follow Dr. Sarah on Instagram. She has an amazing Instagram at Dr. Sarah L. Webb, two B's, and at Colorism Healing.
Thank you.
So thank you again. If this podcast has touched your heart, please share it with others. Please leave me a rating and review so we can reach the hearts of even more change makers like you.